So welcome to another episode of the Betfair Trading Community Podcast. You've got me, Ryan, and also you've got Martin today. How you doing, Martin?
Yeah, I'm good, Ryan. How are you today?
I'm good. And just to sort of give the guys a bit of a background, we did four of these episodes, me and you, Martin, and the sound was a little bit all over the place. So we've got this fancy new software, we think, that should be streaming this to YouTube and also should allow us to edit this better. So please let us know if it's not, and we will try our best to get it sorted. But today's topic is a good one. And we're going to talk about, is Betfair trading gambling? It's a controversial topic that has probably divided traders forever.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm really excited to talk about this topic today because it's funny because people get really funny about the term gambling and actually what it means. And really, the problem I always have with the word gambling isn't so much, but rather what people think of.
Mm.
The kind of connotations that the phrase has gathered over the years, where really when you think of a gambler, you're not thinking of someone who's investing their money in something. Your automatic thought is, oh, there's someone who he's lost his house or something like that. People always think of the ridiculous extremes, and actually, it's interesting because, like I say, with the word gambler, I hear it and I kind of, I recall, you
Mm.
know. But I guess technically, in the form of, if you had to say, is Betfair trading gambling? Yes, it is a form of gambling. Of course, it is. Um, but then it's the same, and it's akin to something like investing in a stock market is gambling.
Mm.
Or any kind of thing where you're investing your money. Essentially, is a bit of a. I mean, it's interesting because I was thinking about this the other day in terms of, imagine when you take your mortgage out on your house, people, especially people anywhere near our age, where you're like in your
Yeah.
mid 30s or whatever,
I'm
maybe
not
early
mid
40s,
30s.
where you must be closing in. You're the same
No,
age as me, Ryan. I'm nearly
no,
34.
you're older than me.
Am I? How old are you then?
33.
I'm 33.
Mid 30s. You told me you was 34 the other week.
I'm 34 in 2 days.
Well, there
So,
you go. I'm not 34 until April, so
well, anyway, I'm pretty sure you've just taken out a mortgage, and a lot of people have to take out mortgages, obviously, at the moment. And I was thinking, with the houses cost, even to get a relatively small house these days, especially if you've got kids or anything like that, you're going to be looking at obviously putting down a big deposit a lot of the time. But then the bigger thing really is the mortgage that you're taking out. And really, in a sense, in a lot of ways, you're gambling in doing that, because you're gambling on a price of the house, basically maintaining at least its level and hopefully rising with inflation and things like that. But of course, if your house suddenly halves in value, the mortgage come back to you and go, "Do you know what? We'll half your mortgage for you."
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so there's so many things in life that are a gamble, but because they don't get the word gambling put with them, we don't necessarily think of them that way. So that's why this topic interests me. What are your thoughts on it, Ryan?
Very similar to yourself, I think crossing the road is a gamble. You could walk across the road and it's a gamble. You could be hit by a car. Now, to mitigate the risk, well, you you stop on the path, right? And anyone watching this has just seen me do that. Quite expressive, me. And you're looking for cars, so you're looking for threats, you're looking for danger. Now, if you don't see anything, then you cross the road, and that's the exact same sort of principle and thoughts that I have with Betfair. I you could, in its rawest form, it is gambling, but and we mitigate that. In life, I think people are better at certain activities than professionals, novices, etc. Now, and there's a reason why a mug punter is bandied about in this industry. I don't consider me, you, Adam, or TC members, or even any of the people that are listening to this, mug punters, because they are gearing up, they're going up a level, to become a better gambler in effect. But I find it quite funny when people sort of turn their nose up at it. I was invited to a networking group, and you go and give an idea and share an idea of how we can help each other in business. And if you're new there, you had to introduce yourself. And I was Ryan Crowers. I'm a professional Betfair trader. Scares me out a lot years. And this lady turned her nose up at me, and she said afterwards, "Oh, yeah, I couldn't do what you do." I said, "What?" And she's like, "Well, gambling, um, and like, what do people think?" Now, my response, I'm quite blunt. My response was quite fun. Probably can't repeat it just in case people have got kids listening along to this as well, if they're listening in the car, etc. But for me, I don't care. It's like, I don't care what people think about me. I make no apologies for the person that I am. It's just like, well, it's not. You haven't actually taken the time to about what it is. You've taken what you think and the media version of gambling and all the bad connotations to it and just attributed it to me straight away. Do you really think that if it was that bad, I would have been able to continue doing it for this amount of time?
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? That people, it's funny, I kind of have, I think the reason we're kind of opening with talking about this stuff rather than really getting into the Betfair side of it is that obviously we've been professional traders for so long that we can't, because I think as well, I don't know if it's the same with women, but it might be. But definitely I've noticed a guy thing is when you meet a guy, one of the probably the first thing they ask is, "Oh, so what do you do?" Right?
Yeah.
Basically, what's your job? So that's the first thing. So, and I play tennis. So I go around, different tennis clubs around here in the north, meet loads of different people all the time. And like I say, because your only other common interest really is tennis, it quickly moves on to, so what do you do? And so I always you almost have to prepare yourself a little opening spiel about what you do, because it's so different to, it's quite obviously what we do is quite a niche industry. Betfair trading is a niche industry. And people who don't know about Betfair don't have a clue what we do. And it's interesting because I always think when you start to explain it, and obviously we've gotten better and better at explaining it over the years we've been doing it, people's ears, they kind of perk up a bit and they get really interested. And then they're like, oh, actually, that's pretty cool. Because I think the funny thing is so many people, and I never take this for granted, but so many people I meet are stuck in dead-end jobs.
Yeah.
Or they're struggling from employment to employment, and they're really not enjoying that part of their life. And then I'm very fortunate I get to do something I love and I've always been a sports fanatic. I've always been obsessed with sport since, the first days I can remember of my life. So it's really interesting, I think, when you start to get into that stuff with people and you're like, they get interested. And, the amount of people that have gone, oh, so how can I sort of try this and things like that afterwards. But yeah, like you say, you kind of have to explain it a bit. Otherwise, people just think, and the thing that I always think of, like when you talk about a mug punter, I always use this classic example of just someone walking into Betfred, on the weekend.
Yep.
They've got a tenner in their pocket and they go and stick it on a horse because they like the color of the colors that the jockey's wearing.
Yeah, or they fill in that like checkbox accumulator sheet.
Accumulate or do one of those bets that's like you've got to have 10 corners and 2 red cards and 7 shots on target, all that rubbish that essentially is just designed and built to take mug punters' money from them. And it's so different to what we do. It's so, I mean, the kind of attitudes, mentality, and the thinking and the ways of ways of betting, placing bets and trades, it's just light years apart between the mug punter and obviously what we do for a living.
Mm.
So it's really, like I say, I keep using the word interesting, but I do find it interesting when I talk to other people about it, because when you actually get into what it is that we do, and we'll it now, that's when people really get interested. I find. What have your experiences been, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to just sort of ask you the question on that as well. Did you ever not want to tell people? Because I know for a while, I remember very distinctly, and you was talking about tennis. I played tennis, and I played for a club in Lincoln, in Netlem, in a village, and it was quite a well-to-do village. And I remember very distinctly, people saying, "Oh, what do you do, or what are you going to do?" And a few of my friends were actually at that club, so other sort of members would overhear conversations between me and my friends and me talking about Betfair, and that would sort of pique their interest. And you could just tell that they were almost like turning their nose up at it a little bit, and just like, well, you've done your job for like 30 years, you've worked your way up. We make more than you, and
Yeah,
and part of society is judge people by that anyway, like the car house that you have, which is wrong. You actually just shutting this down straight away. So I didn't actually want to tell people for a while, just because of sort of, I came into Betfair quite early, so I was like 18, and in your way in the world, and then you're in experiences like that, like tennis clubs and various different places where people are 30, 40, 50. It's like you don't want to tell them because of, like, you're just finding out who you are. So yeah, did you ever not want to tell people about what you did?
I think there was a time where that was the case, and I think what I did was I kind of tried to lead with, yeah, I'm a trader, I trade, and then ask what that is, and you say, well, I trade on sports, and then people ask what that is. But I think the thing is that what I've learned, partly because I remember that obviously my dad. If you don't know, if
Yeah.
you're not one of our members, you won't know my dad. But he's a Richard Footer, absolute amazing cricket trader. Anyone who's been on the forum can testify. Probably the best cricket trader there is.
Mm.
But obviously, when he started, really as soon as Betfair came out, that was when he started and got interested in it. And the thing there was he was very secretive about it for many years. He's not like that anymore. But I think in the early days when he was learning it, having a family, having things like that, you maybe have to be a little bit careful because I don't know if his wife would have wanted him to be trading, things like this. But the thing was that I thought actually that's not the way, because
Mm.
all you're going to end up doing there potentially is creating division, creating secrecy, things like that. So I think that for me, I kind of went the other way and went, right, and probably why I've ended up doing something like Betfair Trading Community, like we always say, Ryan,
Mm.
there's paths that lead us here. And probably the reason that I am so open and talking about what I do and how I got to do what I do for a living, and kind of having absolutely no issue with sharing all of that stuff, is that I saw the other side of it and I didn't really like it. So I was like, okay, I want to do it this way. Because it's funny, because obviously me and you, fair trading community, we do make a living from trading.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I guess that's one of the reasons for me would be that I actually enjoy sharing that stuff. And I got to the point now where if someone asks me, I just tell them straight what I do.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like you say, the other thing is as well, it's funny that you talk about things like cars and houses. I'm not really that interested in stuff like that myself, but you're right.
So
Society does kind of judge people on that. And like I say, I think the fact that I was, the first person of my social group to be able to buy a house, I was the first person to get married and, be able to sort of pay for things like honeymoons and things like that, that people start to think, okay, maybe it's not that bad. And now that obviously I've got, a family, 2 kids, um, things like that, and people have seen that for the last 10 plus years. I've obviously been living off Betfair trading.
Yeah.
That I think people's minds and attitudes change, because they realize, okay, this isn't just someone trying to get lucky on a lottery. This is someone who's got a talent and has invested that and turned it into a career.
Because they always use that, oh yeah, but your wins might be great, but your losses, what about your losses? And you're like, well, that's the traditional punter element of it, isn't it? It's like, I've not
Yeah.
won 2 grand and lost 20.
Well, that's the thing. The thing that makes me laugh, and loads of if and I apologize if anyone does this who's listening, but one of the things that always used to kind of make me laugh a little bit, or just I'd always correct people on this, is that they'd go and put £10 on something. So let's say they put £10 on, Man United to win against whoever on the weekend, and the price was even 50-50, and they put their tenner down, and then they obviously, if they win the bet, they make £10 profit, right? Because if you bet £10 it evens, £10 profit. So but they come out of the bookmaker, Man United win, they go, I've won £20. And you go,
Yeah.
you haven't won £20 because the initial £10 was your money. So
Yeah.
you haven't won that money. That's just your outlay, your risk, your investment. And then actually what you've won is £10, and I don't think people really liked being told that when I told them, because like you say, they're not really thinking about it from making money in the long term. But of course, me and you, that's all we're thinking about, right? The only
Yeah.
interest I have is in the long term. I've got no interest in making £100 in one bet only to lose £200, over the course of the next couple of weeks.
Same.
It's pointless,
So
and I think
pointless. It's so.
exactly. So I think that's where the barrier is. The barrier is there that we just don't. I think, and any trader, and I'm sure our members who are listening now will know will feel the same way. They don't want to be thought of in the same bracket who goes into Betfred. I don't know why I always use Betfred. I just do. Who goes into Betfred with that tenner to burn and just sticks it on anything, or even just goes on a roulette machine,
Well,
or
that's
some
how
rubbish like that.
that's how I got started anyway, because it was not Betford, but it was Ladbrokes. There was a guy at uni who we had a big gap on a Monday, and he liked the roulette machines in the bookies. And I was friends with him, so I went with him. And I've always quite liked, but I just looked at him and was like, "You are an absolute idiot the way you're doing this. Like just piling money and money and money into these machines." And we don't do that. And my thought process was never like that. Even when I laid horses, so that's like sort of getting into the sort of what trading actually is now and is for us. Well, laying horses, that wasn't technically trading, but the attention to detail that I went into was ridiculous. I looked at so much data and so much information, how that horse run, how it ran with that jockey on it. Did it do well on this course? Did it do well on this distance, on the right, on this ground? And then even up into the point of like, how does it perform in this odds range? If it's been heavily backed before, does it perform at that odds range? If not, okay, great. Does it perform better with blinkers on or not? Like, even just getting into these questions, probably even just asking one or two of these questions takes you a level above the standard sort of better like gambler. This is actually thinking about what you're doing and trying to connect the dots a little bit. And then from there, it was like, oh, these prices actually they get out, and I seem to have a skill for picking horses that can do that. And then you go, wow, I've just de-risked this massively. So now it doesn't really matter what happens in this. So the way then I see it is I've researched an opportunity. I've
Oh, What's happened? Well, we seem to have lost Ryan there. So if I assume I'm still on the stream anyway. So let's just conclude this by saying, I think if you take the steps, so if you take the steps that I do when you're trading, you know, you research your trade, you record data, you test things before you invest any money. You're actually pushing a strategy at an edge that's been doing really well, and you're still monitoring it as you go live with it. You know, at what point it's you're just investing your money, and you're actually investing your money wisely. And like I say, the thing is, you're not really taking any more risk than, say, when you invest in a stock market or when you do anything like that. So yeah, I think that's the thing. That's the thing with trading and gambling. Yes, they are the same, but of course, the connotations and the way people think of gambling is nothing like what we do. And there's a reason that the best traders make money consistently over time. You know, it's not luck, it's skill. So yeah, I think we'll leave that one there.